Hello there, citizens. I am the terror that flaps in the night. I am the floaty that will not flush no matter how many times you try in the toilet bowl of crime. I am Darkwing Duck, telling you please, talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. Whatever the heck that means. After all, you are watching Intellectual Podcast with your ears.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Intellectual Podcast. I'm your host, David S. Dawson. This is episode number 204, and today we're going to sit down with actor, writer, and producer Jeff Zook. Jeff was in our 48-hour film this year, Convolution, and he's been a good friend of Rich Varville's for a long time, and we are working together on a project called Forever My Love. My sister Teresa and I are co-directing it. It's a screenplay that Jeff brought to us back in May, and we've been working on it ever since. And we are going to be shooting this weekend, actually, and we're super excited to get this project off the ground and running full speed ahead. Working with Jeff has been a wonderful experience. He's very collaborative and been very open to the process of rewrites on the script. We've been working with our actors. We're honored to be working with Randy Davison and Angela Cavallaro on this film, and both of them have brought a lot to the rehearsals, and what they've brought to the rehearsals is translated into revisions in the script, and through this collaborative process between directors, writer, and actors, I think we've really come to a very special, beautiful film that Teresa and I are very excited to get to direct this weekend. And we've taken a lot of time getting to the point of actually shooting, and looking forward to doing a project in a manner that we've been really wanting to do it for a while, which is really taking some time, thinking through not just locations and what camera we're going to shoot on, but how we're going to shoot it, how the locations tie into the story, how the costuming ties into the story, how every little detail has been poured over and thought through, and I think we're going to have something really special when all is said and done. So super excited to get started on Forever My Love this weekend, and really, really glad that Jeff Zook brought this project to Intellectual Entertainment to help him get produced. I know he's got another project, Sympathy for the Devil, that he's working on with Rich Varville at RSVP, and I'm sure that's going to be an incredibly cool project as well. That one's a horror film, and I know that Jeff and Rich are bringing a considerable amount of art direction and thought to that project as well, so very cool. This chat with Jeff is a lot of fun. We have a good time. We talk a little bit about Forever My Love and the process. This episode was actually recorded a few weeks back before we got to our final rehearsal, and kind of came across some of our final discoveries in the pre-production process leading into production. So some things have developed even since this discussion, but no, it's a great chat with Jeff, and I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I had having it with him. And I believe Whitney's in this conversation as well. Oh man, everything gets all blurred over time, right? But at any rate, if you're joining us for the first time, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show. If you're a regular listener and you've just been listening to us only on our website at theintellectual.com, thank you for doing that. I'd like to encourage all of you, new listeners and old listeners alike, to subscribe to the show on iTunes or iHeartRadio or the Google Play Music app. If you subscribe, it helps us in our rankings and our ratings on those services, but it also makes it a lot easier for you to consume the podcast as the episodes come out, because those apps allow you to listen and then pause and come back later, and it'll pick up right where you left off And in the case of things like iTunes and iHeartRadio, it remembers from your browser to your desktop to your phone. It's just a better way to listen to podcasts. So if you haven't already, please go to iTunes, iHeartRadio, or Google Play Music, and be sure to subscribe to The Intellectual. And while you're there, drop us a review. We always appreciate that as well. And now, let's get into it. It's the 204th episode of The Intellectual Podcast with Jeff Zook.
Talk hard and enjoy the mindgasm. The Intellectual Podcast starts now.
So now, if I get homeless, I got a friend to turn to.
Yeah, basically.
That's good.
Our parents always did too. Like our parents took in our friends all the time.
I'm potty trained and only get fleas in the summertime.
Perfect.
Hey Jeff, microphones work better if they're in front of your face.
Oh, I didn't know we were live. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're recording now.
You can't leave.
Yep.
You can't
Where am I gonna pull my humor from?
It's all about you.
Damn it. I have got no briefing on this or anything. We just fly by the seat of our pants,
Yep.
or what? Because I've never done
Flying
a
by
podcast.
pants.
Well, this is
Fly in
it.
your pants.
We just sit here and chat. So, how you doing, Jeff?
Sit there and chat. How you doing, David Dawson?
Have you guys ever worked together before?
Once.
Yeah, on
I mean, outside of Convolution, had you guys ever worked together?
no.
I didn't even meet Whitney until that 48.
yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Bringing people together.
Yep.
Yes.
So, the podcast is simple. We just sit here and talk about whatever. Talk about you, mostly.
Okay, well,
Occasionally
that's going to be hard because I don't like to talk about
Occasionally
myself.
I'll interject and talk about myself, and then Whitney will be like, this is about the guest. You shut
Focus.
Well, I've seen your podcast before, and you both are great hosts, so I don't think I'm going to have to worry about it too
Aw,
much.
thanks,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Thanks. So we're working on a project together right now.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. You want to tell everybody? a
We're
little
trying
bit
to get this plane off the ground, but we're having issues with dates. Seems like I've always had issues with dates in my life. Oh, that's a whole nother topic.
I tell people a lot that one of the hardest things of making a movie is just scheduling all the people involved
It is.
to be at the same place
It
at the
is.
same time. It's like try planning a party and how many people can't come, you know?
Oh, yeah. It's all like having a band, you know. You try to get five guys together for rehearsal, and someone's always got something going on.
Right.
It's usually a baby or a wife or just they're drunk.
That's why I
One or
don't
the
do
other.
any of those things.
You should just have a one-man band and you eliminate all those issues. Well,
That would be the
some
best
of those
thing,
issues.
yeah. An acoustic guitar out on the street with an open case.
Like, okay, how about this? Before we get into the project we're working on, why don't you just tell us a little bit about you? Like, how did you get into acting, and how have you transitioned into writing?
Wow. Okay.
We'll work that journey. How's that
My
sound?
journey. Well, let's go way, way back. I'm not going to say how far back. That'll give my age away. But no, back. When I was a little kid, I used to. Well, when you're a little kid, you grow up with Sesame Street and all those good things, the Electric Company, and I was always into the little puppets. So my parents used to get me, the little hand puppets, and I didn't really have anyone to hang around with, so I'd make these little puppet shows in my bedroom and call the parents up, come and watch my puppet show, and I'd act like the fool for, however long, and I was, 5 or 6 years old at the time. And when I got into elementary school, I got a chance to be in my first play. The school wanted to do a holiday play. And I think I was in 4th or 5th grade, something like that. I was 8 years old. What's that put you at? What grade? 8 years old.
8 years old.
Second grade?
Yeah,
Second grade, so maybe it was second grade.
Maybe early 3rd grade.
Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so they were doing this. They wanted to do this school production of Babes in Toyland. And I wanted to be in the play. I think I wanted to be the main guy with the girl that, run around on all the adventures or whatever, meet the toy maker. I ended up getting the part of the toy maker. So I'm this little 8-year-old that's, sitting on this throne, cranking out toys on a machine while these, with these other two characters. And that's what did it for me right there, as far as getting into acting, because I got such, I don't know, a light switch turned on in me, and I became a lot more outgoing, in front of people, because at the time my only experience was, behind a refrigerator box with a couple of socks on my hand, performing for my parents. So yeah, when I did that and I got to play the toy maker, which was a fairly decent sized role for an 8-year-old, I caught that bug of just all the people cheering me on and everything. Yeah. So I continued doing little plays until I got into high school. And when I got into high school, I took all my electives in high school as drama. So, back in my day, we would get 3 or 4 electives per semester. Right. They don't give that to kids nowadays. And I would literally take 3 or 4 classes of drama.
That's
I would use
awesome
all
that
my
your school
electives.
offered that.
They didn't want to at first. And I told them why I don't want to take anything. And I did have to give up one, and I took a ceramics class. But because there was 2 drama teachers, we got someone weed whacking.
Yeah, my neighbor's weed whacking. Nobody ever does that in this neighborhood till the day we decide to podcast. And all of course. Like,
that's how it is.
Whacker going
next thing you know, there'll be a crime, baby.
There's not weeds. There's barely even grass. I mean, it's California.
Yeah, a lot of yellow yards.
I know, right? So yeah, anyway,
the giant dog peeing all over San Diego. All the lawns are yellow. Sorry, go on.
Where was I?
You were saying you had to take a ceramics class.
Took a ceramics class.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, I got those electives, and the reason they would let me take 3 classes of drama were because 2 of the classes were different teachers. So I could take this one teacher's drama class, and then another period take the other teacher's drama class. And then the way I got into the other one is at the last period of the day, I believe was seventh period for us, they offered a theater class, which was drama. So I was able to find the loopholes and be able to pull off, having 3 classes of drama. So being able to do that, I got into, all the, I got in good with the teachers and all the rest of the people that worked in the theater at the school. And I was in just about every single play from freshman to sophomore year at El Camino High School, right here in Oceanside.
Wow. So
that's really where I got into it. And then, once you get out of high school, kind of life throws you a curveball. And I was going to go to film school. And I went up and checked out a film school in Paramount. And long story short, my mom talked me out of going up to the film school, and
parents have a really good knack of talking us out of doing things.
Yeah, and I don't understand why she did it, because she knew, since I was a young child that I loved, acting, and I also got, played instruments too. So I just loved performing all around. I've done it with the music and the acting and everything. But so I wanted to go to this film school, and it was up in Paramount, and she took me up there and we checked it out, and it was all the behind the scenes. Running the camera, and your project was always to create a film, and they had all the top of the line equipment, and they taught you back then the black box, which was like the up and coming thing for film at the time. So they were like, well, in this school, you can learn the black box and you'll be able to get a job, no problem, out in the industry. So I was like, yeah, I want to go and do this. And then back then also minimum wage was $3.25. So I was making $3.25 coming out of high school, and I wanted to go to film school. And my mom, we went and saw it, and I was like, yes, I want this. I want to go, and I was going to figure everything out. And my mom goes, well, I'll tell you what, why don't you think about that? But if you don't want to do it, you can come work for the company that I work for, which was an architectural metal company, and they'll start you off at $9 an hour. Ooh. Fuck film school. I'm making $9 an hour. So that's what I did. I basically pushed my dream aside because I saw a path of money. Right. When you're 18 years old and all of a sudden you're making $6 an hour more than anyone else, and you're going, shit, with $9 an hour, I can move out of my mom's house tomorrow.
Right.
And get a place to rent. Because back then, rent was the roommate I had when I was 19 years old, we paid $510 for a 2-bedroom apartment. $510.
Sounds awesome.
Can't even pay my water bill for that right now.
You can't rent a room in somebody else's house for that now.
Yeah. So, needless to say, that went bye-bye. And I got really heavy into music because I could work a regular job and have a band.
Right.
And I had to be performing one way or another. Well, after about probably 10 years, I think I was probably in my early 30s after high school. So maybe a little more than 10 years, 12, 13 years. When you deal with musicians, it's a pain in the ass. And trying to get rehearsals and do shows and flaky guys and, trying to make it big when you're that young as a rock star doesn't work.
Well, it's a weird thing, like the musicians, like a lot of them are musicians because they got that damn the man mentality.
Exactly.
I'm an artist, man. When everything happens, it happens.
Exactly.
They just can't be organized.
You just can't be organized about anything.
Right.
And the ones who get organized and succeed, oh man, they sold out.
Totally, right?
It's like there's no winning in music.
So what instruments do you play?
Bass guitar.
Nice. And you said that you played that from the time you were pretty young?
Well, when I was younger, I started off like most kids do when their parents push them, and I tried piano, I tried violin, I tried trumpet, saxophone, even tried drums. Was absolutely horrible at drums, although I would love to be a drummer. Mm-hmm. Drummers are just so cool, and they get to beat on crap. All I wanted to be was
a drummer growing up,
right?
As far as music went.
Yeah, but so I became a bass player because it had the least amount of strings. And it was easy. I only had to play one of them at one time. So
that's like my speed.
Yeah. And then 80s hair metal came around when I was 20 years old, and I was like, now bass just got really easy because all you got to do is ride the D string for as long as the song is, and maybe jump up to E a couple times and then back down to D. And it's all about shout at the devil, and easiest thing in the world. Well, except for dealing with, 4 or 5 other narcissistic, neurotic guys. So after a while, I got tired of relying on other people to do stuff. So in my early 30s, I think around 32 or something, I decided, I'm going to get back into acting. So that's when I looked for some theater posts and stuff. Back then, it was like there was a Slam magazine or something. Now it's, and then there was the Reader that still exists. But you could find audition things for stage plays. And I found out that right here in Oceanside at the Sunshine Theater, my acting coach teacher from El Camino High School was doing a play called The Dining Room down there.
Really?
So I walked in. His name was Marvin Reed, one of the coolest guys in the world. But I walked in there, and he instantly knew who I was. We're talking 14, 15 years later, And he's like, did you come? He's like, Mr. Zook, Jeff, did you come here to audition for my play? He always talked with that very proper, kind of like the dude from, Inside the Studio.
Oh,
that guy, very, very, articulate, and, she makes a proper cup of coffee in a copper coffee pot, that kind of guy. So I walked in and I go, actually, I saw your name for the cast or for the audition, so I decided to come in here and give it a shot. And he goes, you're in, no problem. Don't even have to audition. He goes,
easiest audition ever, just walk in the door.
Because I had done so many plays with him. So we did The Dining Room, and if you know The Dining Room, it's a series of different little stories with 3 men and 3 women. And you play all the different characters of each different story. So one minute you might be a 12-year-old child, the next minute you're an 80-year-old man, and then anything in between. So that went off without a hitch, and it lit that back up in me.
Right.
So after doing that, I realized how much public theater is, or community theater is, the amount of time that it takes for the amount that you get to perform. I think we spent 3 to 4 months rehearsing for 2 weekends.
It's really
for 6 shows. Yeah, so it's a lot of time and a lot of effort. And, I had a young daughter at the time. She was very young. So I was like, okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to look into the film side of it because that's what I wanted to get into anyway. Mm-hmm. Even though I wanted to be behind the camera, I liked being in front of the camera. I liked being in front of people. But I knew being in front of a camera was quite different. So I went to the Actors Workshop in San Diego. Mm-hmm. Do you know Gregory Watkins?
I don't, but I'm familiar with
he owns the Actors Workshop. I've noticed that some of the festival stuff in the 48, he's a sponsor on it. Mm-hmm. So I went down there and I spent probably, a couple years in their classes. And then I did some, that's where I got my agent, Elegance, Pam Pankey. I got her from doing a showcase down there. And then that's kind of what started me off in the film stuff. But with having an agent, I stayed out of the community stuff. I was doing everything that was, television, network-based, stuff for Saquon Casino and Arrowhead Water and, other little independent films up in L.A. Most of my stuff was done up in L.A. Right. So I never got into, the independent filmmaker like yourself or Rich Varville or Mark Viscara and all those guys. I never got a chance to get into that, and it wasn't till about 3 years ago. It was when Rich did Thirst for Justice on the 48 Hour, Rich Varville. Right. Rich Varville and I started music together. So we've known each other for the better part of 30-something years. And he called me up and he said, hey, I'm going to start making films, bro. He goes, we always talked about doing that when we were doing music. He goes, and you act. Why don't you come down here and, I'll introduce you to the community and I'll put you in my 48. I'm going to do it. It was his first 48. He goes, I'll put you in the 48. He goes, you do a lot of writing and we've written together, so we can write some stuff together and it'll be like what we always wanted to do, And Rich was just starting out and.
Yeah, he had been on the podcast like just before that 48.
Did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was fairly new to everything too.
Yeah.
So this was just about what, like 3 years ago at this point?
Like 3 years ago.
2.5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, 3.5 years ago. And he had just started. He was maybe about a year into it, but he was just doing music videos for bands. It was when he and I stopped doing music stuff together, and I concentrated up there. He concentrated down here on making music videos for his friends that were in bands or for his own band.
Right.
Because Rich and I were always under the impression that if you do it yourself, it's going to get done quicker and you don't have to pay the man. You don't have to give anybody any money. You'll make it, you'll record it, you'll distribute it, you'll do all that stuff yourself.
Right. Man after my own heart.
So he had his painting business and he just took all his painting business money and dumped it into buying the best recording gear, the best filming gear, the best editing gear.
Yeah, he's got really nice equipment.
And studying stuff. Mm-hmm. Rich has always studied things. He won't do anything without like looking into every avenue of it and reading on it and teaching himself, which is admirable because I'm too ADD. I lose track in that. If I can't watch a video of it, I can't learn it. I got to see hands on. So he brought me down here to San Diego, and you were the first person he introduced me to that night that I met you at the Photographic Museum down there. Do you remember that? It was when we went to the screening for 38 or for Thirst for Justice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I met you and Kristen there for the first time. Okay. And that was my first night I went out to actually meet people. And that was 3 years ago, and he was like, yeah, so Dave, this is David Dawson, and this is Kristen Naomi, and I think I met Jody that night too.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And a couple other people. But he goes, you got to get out here and network with these people and so on and so forth. And I didn't do too much of the networking, but I did go to a couple things where I met a couple key people. Mm-hmm. Part of it was Rich giving me the introduction with being in Thirst for Justice, right. The introduction to people actually knowing who I was. And then I was able to, Mark Allen was a big launching platform for me because he and I became pretty good friends on Thirst for Justice. So him and I have always stayed in contact and helped each other out with different things.
Yeah,
so he's turned
people,
he's a real good guy.
Yeah.
He's turned me on to projects, and then Rich and I decided also, because I told him, I said, well, I'm picky and I don't want to just work with anybody and I don't want to just do any film. I don't want to, for starters, I don't have that much time to do that. And I want to do stuff. I don't want everyone to go. And if you're listening, Randy, this is not bashing you because I love you to death. I do. But Randy's fucking in everything, man. And granted,
busy.
Randy is a talented actor. I love Randy, and he's in our film.
Part of the reason he's as talented as he is because he is in fucking everything. He's
Because he is in everything.
working on his craft and constantly honing that talent.
Right.
But yeah, there's a certain point where it's just like, really, another movie?
But Randy's also got the time. He dedicates all his time to that. Unfortunately, sometimes I couldn't do that. I wish I could. I wish I could not have to pay bills and I can go spend the time to actually get some paying gigs. But so I have to be picky about what I do. And I've done a couple turds. I've learned some of the people not to work with.
Yeah.
I've known what to look for in a script.
Well, I think you have to do the turds periodically.
You do,
because
you do.
That's how you learn. You gotta take risks. You gotta fail every once in a while, and
I agree.
You learn the lessons from it, and you improve because of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you found that working on some really excellent scripts, or even some of the turd scripts, has that helped you in your writing?
Yeah, your mom's out there, Kale. It's my nephew leaving. Bye, buddy.
Bye.
I think honestly, working with directors that I've wanted to work with it's been what's helped me with my writing and how I need to how I need to understand what a director is capable of doing, so that when I write, I don't write something that he's going to go, we can't do that. This can't be like that. Like David pointed out a couple issues. I still run across things like, I originally wanted to write a scene with the ocean, and I found out that, there are some difficulties in doing certain things. I've learned a lot from David. I've learned a lot from Rich Varville, and all these guys are great directors in their right, but they all have different styles and different feels, which give them their originality. And that's what I like. I mean, I wanted to work with David for a long time after I saw, after I met David, it's one thing to meet him, but then when I see some of his work and what he's done, I'm like, yeah, I want to work with that guy. And it wasn't originally to write something and work with him behind the camera, but I wanted to be in one of David's films. Well, I haven't gone out of my way to put myself out in this community either. I've only done a handful of films with a handful of directors around here, but with the exception of one, and I won't even name it, I'm proud of everything I've done. Mm-hmm. Some of them, the quality isn't that great, but the story's good. The shooting, the angles were good. One of the ones that I'm really happy about, just because of the way the story was told, was a student film, and that got into the, it got nominated for one of the best in the last 48. I've got to do some stuff with Rich, but as I've taken on some of these roles and learned that I'm only going for the stuff that I really want to put an effort into and the people that I want to work with, I've learned also with actors. There are certain actors I don't want to ever work with again. But then I've been lucky too to get a chance to work with Randy Davidson and to work with you, Whitney. I mean, I've seen some of the stuff you've done. I don't remember the name of it where you're like all like the swamp girl or whatever, but that was such a cool film. And that was a student film, right? Because didn't you work with Kirby Crow on that?
I did.
I did a film with Kirby Crow.
Really?
And that's what made me watch that film, is I was like, okay, well, I just worked with Whitney on Convolution, and I've worked with Kirby, and I love Kirby. She's great. She's so professional, and she has an all-girl team, and that girl, her girl team kicks ass. Mm-hmm. They get shit done, So, I watched it, and I was like, God, Whitney's great, and I was like, so getting the opportunity to work with, the likes of Whitney and Mark Allen and Larry Poole and Steve Froelich and Kristen Naomi, all these people, and then getting to work with the crews like yourself and Mike Peterson and James Robb, and I can go down the list, Mark Viscara, and I've had a lot of luck. Mm-hmm. But I've also kept myself kind of a little bit on the down low, so a lot of people still don't know too much about me, and that's okay. I'm not looking for, to be some local hero here in San Diego. I just want to do something that's good. And so as I've had all that time open up for me, I've decided that, I'm going to write some stuff. So I wrote a short with Rich Varville called Life or Death. And we had a lot of people in it. Natalie Lauer was in it, Randy Davidson, Mike Brunell. Here, let me pick up these other names I keep dropping. And Rich, that was one of the first serious shorts Rich wanted to take on, and I think he got a little overwhelmed on it because I wrote this script that was very gritty, and he wanted to take it to the next level with these
sounds like Rich
with all these really cool things with car stuff, and so the script ended up getting bigger, and it got to the point where it was going to end up being about a 25-minute short. And Rich is very adamant about getting into festivals,
right? And
he wants to keep his films at 12 minutes or less, and that's a good idea. I mean, there are film festivals you can get in with longer films, but yeah, he's right. I mean, the shorter, the better usually.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, if you're going to make a 20-minute short or 30-minute short, like, it needs to be really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to agree with that. Yeah. And
There's no point in doing it if you're going to do an adequate job. Like, if you're going to do a longer short, you need to really make sure that you're knocking it out of the park.
And I think he could have done it with this film. I think it was just a little bit too early in Rich's career. I think now at this point, he would eventually probably want to, bring that one back to life and possibly do something with it.
Right.
He is going to do a short with me, and it's going to be a horror short, but it's still going to be, I want to keep it around the under 30 mark, because a lot of horror festivals, as long as it's under 30, you can do it. I mean, Hush, which is really popular right now.
Well, the more niche your potential festival is, I think the better off you are in terms of trying to get a longer film in. Because if a film festival, specifically horror, that means they're only getting horror submissions, which means they're not getting inundated with as many submissions as a general film festival does. So it's easier to fill a 30-minute slot with a 30-minute film, because you don't feel like you're turning away as a festival director. You don't feel like you're turning away a half dozen other shorts to show this one longer piece. Right. Because you just don't have the same volume of submissions. Yeah. So it's smart if you're doing, kind of a niche film. Right. That's where you do a longer one. Yeah.
And it makes sense. Better. And because Hush it runs at 24 minutes, but
Hush is amazing.
It draws you in. It's
so good.
It's completely amazing. I mean, when I first watched it, and I was sitting in the theater watching it, I thought there was a major audio problem. When the girl's walking out on the rock and you hear this, and I was like, kind of just, I think for maybe the first probably 4 or 5 minutes of the film, I was just like, what the hell? And then I got sucked into it, and I started really understanding it. And then when you get to that tipping point in the film, that oh shit moment. It's I love the film. I couldn't get past. I wanted to see it again, but I was like, okay, well, I can't be running around up and down the freeway at all these different festivals just to see Hush. It'll be on Vimeo sooner or later.
Well, that premiere for Hush was like a week after the Film Awards 2 years ago, and so I just won Best Director, and I was sitting up in the booth at the screening watching from up top. I didn't sit down in the general audience, and Michael Foster kept kind of wandering in and out, like he couldn't sit still while it was screening. He's wandering in and out. But when it got to the end and I saw him, I was like, should I just give you my award right now? Because I feel like a fraud. Like, this is so good.
Yeah.
I was blown away by it.
Yeah. No, it was a great film. Yeah. I didn't know what to expect, but that was one of the films that I don't usually fall into the whole thing whenever I see someone popping all their stuff up on Facebook and going, oh yeah, I got to run and see this. For some reason, and it might even just been his artwork for his advertisement, I was like, I got to see this.
Yeah, they handled the marketing of that film exceptionally well.
Yeah, they did it real well. Yeah. And, he's in a lot of those underground festivals, Horrible Imaginings and these other ones and stuff. And it's got kind of a niche feel. I mean, it's more of a psychological thriller and not really a horror, but, it's...
well, that's a subgenre of horror.
Right.
They've done a great job. And they've broken through into the regular festivals, too, because, again, runtime doesn't matter if your film's just fucking excellent.
Yeah. And it is a good one.
So I wanted to ask Jeff, is that your usual genre? Like, do you write a lot of horror? Or...
This is funny. I'm into so many different things, and I'm usually, when I write stuff, it's because I'm inspired by something that's either going on in my life or happened in my life or from people watching, horror in general. Yeah, I love horror movies. And as I was starting to say before we talked about Hush, this one that I'm writing that I'm going to do after Forever My Love with David is going to be, just this, it's a horror movie, but it's going to be kind of a twist on something, and it's going to be longer running, and, I got a good crew that's going to work on it. But that one, I think that's just a story I wanted to tell. It doesn't really mean anything to me, where, the one that I approached David with when I was looking for a director and a team to shoot it, because I didn't want to, it was important to, it was an important enough story to me that I didn't want to screw it up. I don't think I'm even close to that level of, taking on the whole salad and, putting a film together.
It's a very emotional piece.
Yeah. And that one meant something to me. So, I had written this story and then, revamped it a couple times and then brought it to David and, wanted to see his reaction on it, because, it's meant to tell a message of, I can't really say too much. I don't want to give it away, but the film is meant to tell a message, and it's, it's basically, to me, it's a film that's about the true understanding of what love is. Mm-hmm. And I always, and I'm guilty of this, especially being a man in the world of today, is we take a lot of things for granted, especially when it comes to, I'm going to get all emotional about this shit. I'm such a weeping willow.
Just breathe, man. You'll get through it.
Just breathe. Breathe deep. Don't cry in front of Whitney, my lord. No, all of us take for granted a lot of things when it comes to our families or relationships, or just people in general in the world. And you see it so much today in the amount of hate and pain and suffering in the world. And sometimes we need to be reminded of what's the most important thing, what's truly important out of life, I'm not an overly religious person or Christian at all, but I do know that if anything's true in the Bible, the one thing that's said throughout every page of the Bible is that you must love each other. And that's what people don't stop to realize, because we're too busy with ourselves being selfish, or the fast-paced life of making a living, and too many people live for their jobs, or they put their jobs before their family, or they they take their jobs too serious for their family. You know, they do something that they don't want to do, or they're stuck in because they want to make things better for their family, when they don't realize that, you know, what's most important is just being together. It doesn't matter if you live in a mansion with 3 cars in Beverly Hills or you live in a shack, you know.
Yeah, you get lost keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly.
To such a degree that you forget the important part of what your relationship with the people that you're providing for actually is.
Well, and sometimes you just get so stuck in your daily grind that you don't even recognize that there is an option outside of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, if anything, that's all I hope for anyone to get out of this film. And I think we got 2 really powerful actors that both feel really challenged by these parts that they got to play. Randy Davidson being, you know, our lead actor, and Angela Cavalera is our actress. And both of them have had many questions, and they have to do a little bit of soul searching, because this one's, it's deep, and you gotta pull down deep to do it. And, you know, when I wrote the words in that story from my heart. Some stuff had to be changed because I'm not a screenwriter. You know, I'm learning and I'm getting better.
Well, and we've done something interesting with it too, because like, it's not so much that things need to be changed. We could have absolutely shot the script that you wrote. Like,
no, but you came in and did a little doctoring, and it's quite the story now. It's very emotional.
But it wasn't that like I swept in and did a bunch of doctoring. Like, we worked with the actors. And
David, hold on a minute. Haven't you told me many times, just fucking own it, bro? Okay, just
Take
own
the compliment.
it. But one of the things that I'm most pleased with this process that we've been going through on Forever My Love is how collaborative it's been.
Yes.
Because it wasn't that I came in and did a rewrite. We read the script together. We talked about it with the actors. You had already talked about it with the actors quite a bit. And then Teresa and I came in and we ran a couple rehearsals. And in those rehearsals, we listened to the actors perform the piece. We talked to them about what they thought the meanings were behind the lines. And then we ran some theater games, and basically we did like a therapy session with the 2 of them.
It was.
Where I played like the therapist, and the 2 of them were talking about their relationship with each other and what went wrong, you know? And they created this lovely piece of backstory for their characters. Mm-hmm. And I turned to Jeff, I said, okay, now you got your writing assignment. Go revise the script, you know? Incorporate this, you know? And he did a great job, like taking the things that they came up with and key moments of things that they argued about with each other and integrating that into the script. And then I came in and just polished it a little bit. But I mean, it was such a fun collaboration between all of us, Teresa and myself and the 2 actors and you. I'm just really proud of that whole process. Yeah. And it's something that I've been wanting to do on a screenplay for a long time. We try to do a little bit of that with our 48s and whatnot, because we open it up. Everybody's part of the writing process, you know, story creation and whatnot. Right.
It's hard to do on that type of time scale, though.
But it's such a rapid time scale. But to have, you know, a 3-hour rehearsal where we sit and just basically play an improv game with the 2 lead actors in character was a special moment and a chance you don't often get on a lot of films to really workshop through the characters and Randy discovered things in the midst of that workshopping. He's like, that's not the back story I created for this character. Why'd I say that? And I'm like, don't question it. Just go with it. You know, like, let's explore where you're going, because your id is telling you that this is
exactly.
What's, you know?
So when can audiences look forward to seeing this?
We're going to be shooting it at the end of October. That's the schedule right now. And my goal is to have it done by the end of the year so we can get it submitted for the Film Awards and Film Week.
Yeah, I was hoping we could get it in for Film Week, but aren't they saying there's a deadline of October 15th right now?
No. That's the regular deadline. Then the late deadline is till like mid-December.
And then the super late deadline for
for
anyone.
But we'll have it done. We'll have it done in time for the final deadline.
Yeah. I really look forward to people seeing this one, and I think David was my first approach to when I watched In Situ. Is that how you say that word? In situ?
In situ.
In situ.
In situ or in situ? When I watched that, that's sold me right there. I mean, to be able to shoot those certain angles and get those emotions. I mean, the actors did a great job. Shane and Kayla were awesome when they had the little intimate scene. But it's the way David captured the emotion, and this film needs that. I mean, Randy and Angela are going to have to be very strong, and I think they will be. I mean, they're, like David said, they're pulling stuff out of themselves, and
we're going to be pushing Angela to perform her character in a way she didn't envision
exactly
at all from the start. So
exactly, and
really,
I don't think
really interesting.
And that was one of those things I think we were trying to explain to her, and I was hoping that she would have got from the beginning, and she is pulling it out of her. But when you have a family and kids, you can use that to draw off of. And that's what I did with Randy, and I had a big talk, and he had, we were talking about the same, when I talked to him about this film, it was a year ago, almost a year ago from now, about if he would be in it. And this was even before I approached you. And he was like, well, what's it about? And I said, well, my oldest son had just passed away September 29th, so it's coming on a year. And Randy also went through, Charlie Brown passing. And I told him, I said, Randy, this is just about how you, and his sister had passed too, prior to that. But I said, this is about you just pulling out all your emotions on, the loss of Charlie Brown and your sister or any other loved ones.
Yeah,
or
it's very much
friends.
about processing grief, which
which
I assume is why you came to me, because it seems to be my go-to.
It's just pulling those emotions out and feeling that love and being true to yourself. And that doesn't matter if Charlie Brown passed away or my son or anything. That's just an emotion that you can pull out to find. It's hard. It's especially hard for me to even think about it because, growing up, I used to never really feel the whole love side because, you're a dude and you got to be strong and you got to do this for everyone and you got to try to, push those feelings back or whatever.
Boys don't cry.
But, when certain things happen in your life, especially as you get older, you start to feel those things more. And I feel those things a lot deeper now than I ever did, I think, which, sometimes helps me in my acting too, although I hardly ever get parts like that. It's always the asshole I get. But so I told Randy, because Randy gets those too. He gets a lot of bad boy stuff. And I said, Randy, this is a chance for you to do something that I wouldn't even want to do. I wouldn't attempt to do this. The way I wrote it, I don't think I could ever do it.
Yeah.
And he was really excited to do it because he's always gets bad boy stuff. So I think for Randy,
yeah, he's gonna have to be very vulnerable when we perform this.
Yeah, and the hardest thing too is he and Angela, who just met each other. It's not like they know each other like a Randy and a Kristen Chandler or something like that. I mean, they have to get into each other and be able to, understand a love for each other. That's the hardest thing to do as an actor, is to look into someone else's face and fall in love with them.
Yeah.
At least for the amount of time you need to.
Yeah.
And sell it. I mean, it's a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of emotion and a lot of questions and answers about why their relationship is the way it is. So I think it's going to be a great story, and I really look forward to Dave and Teresa's vision on it, because everything they painted in my head just sounds like heaven. And that's what I want it to be. I want people to, in every word of the film, I want somebody in the audience to be able to relate to that particular time. And I think we have so many elements of that in there that everybody in there is going to go, oh. They
should be able to recognize themselves.
They're going to recognize themselves in it,
Yeah.
or they're going to recognize someone else in their family in it, or they're going to have one of those moments and hopefully walk away, going home and hugging their wife or their boyfriend or their girlfriend or their husband or their kids and just saying, I love you.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Well, I love you, Jeff Zook.
Okay, that's it. No more on that film.
I'm super honored that you approached us to do it, and I'm really looking forward to working on it with you. And after we're done with it and we release it out to the public, let's have you back on. We can talk about what it was like to shoot it.
That would be awesome.
And working together on set and stuff.
Yeah, that would be
awesome. Bringing your vision to the screen, like I think
a little less cryptic, because right now we're keeping everything under wraps.
Yes.
But cool. Thanks for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
You know.
And I did not expect Whitney to be here and drive all the way up from San Diego. This is such a pleasant surprise. I thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome to see your pretty little face today.
Oh, thank you. It was nice
and
sitting
your
here
pretty
chatting
little
with
face
you.
too, David.
Oh, thanks.
But you're always so gorgeous, especially with your new live profile picture where you're doing your little doing the rock eyebrow.
I was bored. I was sitting in a corporate event and totally bored. I'm like, all right, let's do the eye thing.
He's like best James Bond. Hey, check me out.
So real quick, is there any way that anybody who's interested in working with you on stuff or whatever, how they can reach you? Is just Facebook the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, Facebook. I have IMDb. You could Jeff Zook at IMDb. The best thing is just find me on Facebook. Cool. I don't even know what my URL is. Just Jeff M Zook.
There you go.
On Facebook, Jeff M Zook. Yeah, I think it'll probably pop up first. Or, here's my phone number, 760. Never mind.
Good night, folks.
No. If you know anyone around town or talk to David, I mean, I'm starting to know a lot of the people that everyone else knows.
Yeah.
So.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
You are known.
And I look forward to working with many, many of you out there that I still haven't. So thanks for having me on, David.
Thanks for coming,
Whitney.
Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You know the old saying, you never get a second chance to make a first impression? That phrase is incredibly true in our business. In entertainment, your first impression can mean everything. It can mean the difference of booking a job or not booking a job, having an audition or not having an audition. That first impression can get you in the door and make things happen. And for an actor, that first impression is the headshot. First and foremost, casting directors, producers, they're going to see your headshot and they're going to make decisions about whether or not you get seen based on that one image. So it's incredibly important to make that image an investment in your future. And to do that, you want to find the right photographer, someone who's going to work with you to craft the perfect image, the perfect first impression. And I suggest you check out portraitsbypeggy.com. Peggy's been doing photography since the 80s, and she really knows her stuff. And she wants to work with you to craft the perfect captured image, the one that captures the uniqueness of you and helps you book the job. She wants to work with you. She wants to really get into who you are, what sort of jobs you're trying to book, and help you get the perfect image. So check out portraitsbypeggy.com and book your portfolio session today.